for the opacity, as you can see here, we have an opacity which is basically circular, and we have a fall off material which is also circular, and the two combine to produce our snowflake. And if you look at the opacity, you'll see that in the center it's close to being white but not actually white, and that allows the additive color, which you can see is turned on here, and extended parameters to take effect. And that means that when snowflakes actually overlap each other, the additive element of the shader sort of adds together, and the flakes produce a brighter effect. Okay, so that's it for the material elements. Let's have a quick look at the rest of the objects in the scene. The last thing that finishes off the cliffs is a bend, and that you can see just bends the cliff walls away from the camera. If I just unhide the camera, you can see that's where we are. So that's just mainly to, you know, give the walls a sort of curving effect, so I don't have to worry about making the cliff go on forever. Now, inside this cliff, I've actually got a deflector, which you can see is called deflector 4. And you can see at the top of each cliff, I've got another set of deflectors, and that just basically stops the snow coming in through the top here and coming out through the wall here. When the snow comes in, it actually comes in from right and goes over to the left. It's just allowed to pass through this wall here. There's no point in putting a deflector on the other side, because by the time it's gone through the wall, it's too late. And for this particular effect, I didn't feel it was necessary to use an omni deflector, because basically this wall's very, very dense. We could optimize it and use tricks to actually get a faster collision, but it would have been a really slow collision detection, and at the end of the day it would only have been useful if I wanted the snow to build up on the cliff face. For a final effect for a movie, that might be necessary, and you know, you might have to take the performance hit to do that. If we look up here, I'll just hide the camera again to make it a bit easier to see what we're doing. You can see this is where the particle flow is. This is where the particles are coming down from. And you can see there's another collision object down here at the floor. This is basically used to kill off the particles when they reach the ground, and that's basically to stop the particle count getting too high. And then you can see we've got a bunch of different forces here. We've got a wind, which is called large wind. You can see it's got a small amount of wind force to it. But you can see this main usage actually is using the turbulence, which we covered in the in DVD 4. And that gives the snow a nice swirling and natural motion. In combination with that, we've got another force called wind small, and you can see again it's got a little amount of force. And if you scrub, you can see I've actually animated both of these winds just so that they wiggle around over time, and that's using a noise controller on that appropriate rotation axis of each wind force. Again, this is just adding all these random elements. It's just there to try and break up any sort of regularity that you might have in the effect, and this regularity obviously gives away the sort of computer generated aspect of it very, very easily. So you've got to try and break up any sort of repetition and make things as organic and natural looking as possible. Then we have gravity, which is used to pull our particles downwards, which is pretty easy to understand. And then we've got drag, which you can see we've got turned on. You can see I've got it set to -400. As discussed in DVD 4, one of the problems with drag is that by default it comes on when you create it. It has a time on value of 0, and it has a time off value set to quite a small range. I think it's 100 frames. And you can see if we look down at our time slider here, we've got an animation range of 200 frames. And that means that basically halfway through our animation this drag will turn off. Another aspect to think of is that when I want this snow effect to start on frame 0, I actually want our snow to be in full effect. So to do that, what I've actually done is in the particle flow, I've actually started the emission on a negative frame. I've started it on, say, -75 or something like that. And that gives the snow enough time to actually fall down and get itself set up so that when you cut into the scene on frame 0, you've actually got the snow already fully formed and ready for your effect. And this is very, very common in a lot of particles. It's called particle run-up. And generally when you're working on a particle effect, you'll start on frame 0 and then you'll get your particle effect looking great. And then when you actually have to put it into effect in a real scene, what you'll have to do is you'll have to get that start frame of frame 0 and knock that all the way back until it's starting on frame -50, 60, whatever. And that negative adjustment is based on how long it takes for your particle effect to reach full effect. So if it's snow or rain or whatever, it's the amount of time it takes for the rain to come from the top of the screen down to the bottom of the screen and to create splashes and